This is the USA Emergency Broadcast Network, your source for reliable disaster preparedness information.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of this station, its management, sponsors, or other hosts. If you have any comments or suggestions about this program, please contact us at radio@usaebn.org. That's radio@usaebn.org.
My name is Andre. I'm with the USA Emergency Broadcasting Network, and I'm happy to introduce our guest every month, Nancy Leader from ZetaTalk.com. Nancy, how are you?
Hi. We have a full-packed hour. This hour, I'm going to remind people about the alien presence, all the proof that the whole cover-up about starting with Seti claiming that they're listening for radio signals recently, which is such a joke. But before we get into it, I also want to touch on a couple of EMP things that have arisen this month to show you how close Nibiru is getting, how much it's whomping us. And the cover-up over Nibiru is side by side with the cover-up over the alien presence. Both relate to the Annunaki on Nibiru. Before we get into this, our standard disclaimer in partnership with USAEBN, Zeta Talk and the Zeta Report will be discussing the challenges of living on a planet beset with change, rising seas, increasing earthquakes and volcanic activity, weather gone wild, and the worry of what to do next in a worst-case scenario. We will also inject Zeta Talk prophecy on what is coming next and advice on readiness plans and safe locations. Whenever Zeta Talk is quoted, please remember that prophecy is not fact. It is opinion. It only becomes fact when it happens. The Zetas are remarkably accurate, but have been wrong on occasion. Bear that in mind. For more information on this subject, please visit ZetaTalk.com or the Zeta Report on YouTube. Now, this hour is packed with facts. No Zeta Talks, prophecy, no in the opinion. So this is fact-based. Rip off the cover. Let's hear what's really out there. Regarding Nibiru, this last month we have had, well, I think recently we've had a neon blue cloud touch down in New York City, blowing a transformer, and related to direct link outage across the nation so people couldn't make 911 calls. And the Lamarsk explosions over Russia, which were caused by greasy blobs in the tail of Nibiru exploding when they reached some oxygen on the edge of the upper atmosphere, and the extreme Schumann resonance giving people headaches and nausea and shorting out equipment. Now, that was mentioned last month. What about this month? Woo! 737 MAX 8 has been grounded. The Boeing planes worldwide, after a jet in Ethiopia faltered in the same manner as a jet a month earlier in Indonesia, the sensors giving incorrect information to the autopilot, and down they went, plunging nose first into the ground. Supposedly a software problem, but sensors can be influenced by EMP. Now, they're all grounded until that gets fixed. I would suggest putting that in a lab, blasting it with EMP and seeing if the pilots can manually take the autopilot off and take the plane back from the autopilot, because that's what saves the planes. RUNet is doing an independence test in Russia. They want to make sure that Russia can have the internet even if the rest of the world is gone. Electrical outage everywhere. Now, this is all posed in the, to make sure that people can't come in and sabotage Russia and all that kind of nonsense, but it's not that. They just don't want to say Nibiru, but that's what it's all about. They're worried about, they want to make sure that the speed is there, that people can talk and send email and get website access across Russia. President Trump signs an executive order. And this was, I think, March 26th. Wow. Was that tight time frame? Within 90 days, within 180 days, blah, 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 blah. And then it goes on, and after that, within another 90 days or whatever, just clump. Boy, that's tight. Suddenly, it's an emergency. Homeland Security, Department of Energy, Department of Defense, and they have to get cracking. So we're going to make the United States completely EMP resistant. Good luck. I know I had to put up quite a bit of copper plating on my outdoor surveillance cams. All right, let's jump into the alien presence. Are we being readied for conscious contact with aliens? Are we about to make contact, or are they already here? The Seti project would have you believe we are still looking for radio signals, as in the movie Contact. Seti made a flurry in the news in the summer of 2018 when their report that fast radio bursts, a repeating signal, had been captured. Oh yes, we're all sitting around. They're not here yet. We're hoping to get a signal. While the human elite would have us think that man is alone as an intelligent species, and that they, our leaders, are the most powerful element in the universe, the reality of increasing contact with the alien visitors, solid physical evidence that they exist, is forcing change. Beyond E.T. and the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Hollywood has not been a help in these regards, making a profit with scare stories. Hollywood is fiction, not reality. There are rules in the universe, obviously, and the bad guys cannot just land and eat us. Otherwise, they would have already, right? What would be holding them back? Let's step through the documented cases of conscious and admitted contact. Yoda. Are the aliens depicted in the Star Wars series real? Yoda was. At least he was hanging out in monasteries. A Yoda image was found on a manuscript, complete with big ears and 3 toes. Quoting The Guardian, this pre-1600 Yoda look-alike was found on a medieval manuscript, end of the quote. And I gotta tell you, that's Yoda. Voronezh in 1989. In 1947, the U.S. had Roswell, but the evidence was hidden and denied. But a case in 1989 in Voronezh, Russia, had many witnesses, including children. They reported they had seen a big ET with 3 eyes strolling around a Russian park. The vibes were all good, no fear. Quoting from the New York Times, residents of the city of Voronezh insisted that a lanky 3-eyed extraterrestrial creature had indeed landed in a local park and gone for a stroll, and that a seemingly fantastic report about the event, carried by the official press agency TASS, was absolutely true. What about the Brazilian Roswell? In 1996, we had the Brazilian Roswell in Varinga, once again having children central to the contact. The vibes were empathy for the crash victims, not fear. Quoting from UFO Casebook, the entity was seemingly in a dazed condition. 3 protrusions stood atop its head, which glowed with red eyes. It also had long arms, short legs, and big feet. The monster sounded off with a buzz as it was taken into a net. Later that very day, 3 girls were walking home after work. Taking a shortcut through a wooded area, they stumbled upon one of these strange alien creatures. End of the quote. The Star Child skull. But what physical evidence is there? How about the Star Child skull? The Star Child was a controversy for years, though it's clearly not human nor any known ape. DNA testing confirms. Quoting the Star Child Project, the Star Child's neck muscles attach in a way that indicates it was a very small neck relative to typical humans, no more than half of normal size. Human neck muscles normally attach at an elevated point at the rear center of the occipital bone, the rear bone of the skull. That elevated point is called the external occipital protuberance, or inion for short. In humans, and indeed all primates on Earth, all have an inion. The Star Child skull does not. End of the quote. How about the Peruvian skulls, the mummy skulls found in Cusco in 2011, Mexico? Quoting the press, announcing the discovery of a mummy with no human characteristics, Spanish and Russian doctors have come And we confirm that this is indeed an extraterrestrial. The body is 50 inches tall, triangular head, eye cavity too large, open fontanelle, which is only characteristic of children up to 1 year, and has molars, which show that there is a tremendous gap that is not common in humans. End of the quote. But nothing says proof like a photo or video. In 2011, a frail little alien that had been captured in photos from London to Missouri and Mexico was captured on video in Argentina. Same little guy. Quoting a UFO site, a group of tourists allegedly photographed an unknown small being in Capilla del Monte in Argentina. End of the quote. And I have photos, folks. You go to check out my YouTube afterwards, my Nancy Leader channel, and I think Andre also has some of the photos up on the USA site. And you just have to see the photos. You just have to. I mean, how can Seti say, we're waiting for the radio signals? Do they think that this whole thing about they're not real, trust us, we'll tell you when we... All right.
Maybe they've been working with them since before, but...
Yes, they have.
Okay, continue, please. Sorry.
Since Roswell, Andre. And they don't want to admit it. You know, what would they say? Well, we didn't think you could handle it. We can handle it, but we didn't think you could. Because knowledge is power. And they don't want you chatting with these little guys. Because they want to be considered the most powerful thing in the universe. We have big planes and bombs, and we're in charge of things. And no, get out of the way and let us talk to the real amazing technological feats here.
Well, that's the thing, too. When you're talking about service to self and service to other type individuals, souls, service to self is also can be communicated as power over others.
That's
right. Narcissistic individuals who control and want all the money and all the power and all the information, and nobody can have anything. That's right. That's service to self.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's right. Absolutely, put your finger on it, indeed. And the CIA in those days was all over the place. I'm in charge here, you know. So okay, not just the. It's not exclusive. I remember Haig after, was it when Reagan was shot, you know, grabbing something and saying, I'm in charge here. Alrighty, Peeping Toms in 2008 in the U.S. A video was promoted by Stan Romanovsk in the Denver area and got lots of press. It had been taken by a father trying to catch a peeping Tom, and it was adjudged valid, though Romanovsk himself was a known self-promoter. In 2007 to 2010, the California Nightwalkers hit the press. Though not new, even known to the American Indians, they were now caught on video walking across a backyard. In the opinion of the Zetas, they came from a swampy planet and needed long legs for wading through the swamps. Here's a description, and I quote, "The clip depicts a very thin, upright creature with some type of cape, which covers them slowly walking across the backyard in front of the security camera. They ended up chasing what they thought may be the culprit, and basically saw two thin trails through the weeds where it was traversing, leading straight to a pond or lake." End of the quote. So the American Indians put up statues of the Nightwalkers, but here we had it caught on video. Skinny Bob. Then in 2011, the Skinny Bob video was released. This video was examined relentlessly, but was found to be valid in every respect. Those who watched it had no doubt that the charming little blinking guy was real, a Roswell survivor. He looks just like the Zeta sketches on the Zeta Talk website. Same guy.
The Skinny Bob video is amazing. And when I found that, I think I found that before we started working together. I was looking at that particular video on your YouTube. And I know there's some backing information that's on the Zeta Talk website and the poleshift.ning website regarding the origin of the original video of that. Was that video a Russian origin of a Black Project U.S. crash survivor, right?
They never did pin down where it came from. It was some guy that got it, that was handed it. And it was like who gave it to him, and it
like 35 millimeter maybe film.
Yeah, but you could hear it go. You can hear this old-fashioned tapes like around and around, like around. Yeah, like the old-fashioned movies. You know, you can hear it clickety clickety clickety, and it was examined for authenticity. Yes. And not doctored, you know, etc. But
incredible.
You just watch it.
It's hard to fake that because of the eye movement, the way the person moves, so fluid and blinks. It's incredible.
Yeah, and even when even his little forehead wrinkles and he blinks and everything moves and if it's CGI, it's better than what Hollywood produces.
No way.
It's so authentic, and you just got to.
In my opinion, no way.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Then in 2014, Forbes magazine focused on an alien race called the Tall Whites, quoting sources claiming they were influencing the U.S. government. These stories about the Tall Whites have emerged almost single-handedly from Charles Hall, an enlisted man assigned to a military weather station in the high Nevada desert. Only drawings of the Tall Whites are available. Former Canadian Defense Minister Paul Hellyer reportedly interviewed Charles Hall for several hours. Thus, his conclusion and inclusion of tall whites in his list of aliens living among us. Cold and arrogant, they are not good-hearted aliens visiting Earth. As with all alien contact, they can only give counsel and advice. We're talking about, well, actually all aliens. They cannot do things to you. They cannot kidnap you or eat you. They can only counsel you, and you can ask for counsel from the bad guys or the good guys, depending upon what is in your heart and the type of request you make of them. So only request good things for other people. These are the rules of contact in the opinion of Zetas. And I have to say, I could talk endlessly about how that's true. That's true. In 2016, an adorable, non-threatening little blue alien was filmed bopping around a gas station in Peru. Caught on several surveillance cams and witnessed by dozens, this video went full bore, showing levitation and passing from one dimension to another. The little blue guy floats away when chased and is almost run over by a truck, but seems to disappear, and then reappear on the other side. He switched dimensions. Close inspection of the video shows that where the little guy seems to be all head and legs, stubby arms can be discerned, and a couple bulbous eyes. Quoting Coast to Coast AM. The entity looks extremely shiny and very balloon-like before it somehow manages to survive an encounter with a massive truck on the highway, to which it tried to escape. 3 gas station employees and a policeman witnessed the event. Fortunately, the scene of the incident allowed for additional perspectives, as the gas station was equipped with 4 security cameras, and one worker filmed the affair with his cell phone. End of the quote. Now, don't you suppose that was a setup? You know, for the awakening, and the alien said, okay, this is a good spot. It's always very active, and they got all these surveillance cams, and we'll go and, okay, Mr. Blue, you go down there, bop around, switch dimensions, float, do all these things that only aliens can do, and voila, he was in the news. The Peru mummies. Then in 2017, things really got interesting. The Gaia site began publishing their amazing documentaries of the most recent discoveries detailing mummies discovered in caves in Peru. Scientists from Russia, China, the U.S., and elsewhere were in attendance. The anatomical analysis, X-rays, and DNA extractions were carefully detailed. The credentials of the team were impeccable. The mummies were covered in a white dust, later explained as silicone, used today by mankind to dehydrate foods and medicines. This was quickly followed on Gaia by a video detailing the autopsy of a couple standing upright rather than in a seated position. What was dramatic and explosive about this discovery was that the apparent hominid bodies contained eggs and showed no evidence of being able to chew. These were reptilian. The Peruvian snake man does indeed show many of the anatomical features of snakes. Just as the base creature for man during genetic engineering was various apes, the base creature for snake man was apparently a snake. As is known, snakes can develop arms and legs, sharing many genetics with lizards and other reptilians. From the start of the Zeta Talk saga, the Zetas had explained that service to other souls, good-hearted, emerge from reptilian planets just as readily as they do from planets where the dominant species is warm-blooded. The Earth in its past also had an intelligent reptilian species, a type of raptor in the Ural Mountains. Lest one think these reptilian snake men were cold-hearted, the mummies included an infant who likely died of the same health problems afflicting its parents. And I have to tell you, when you see that little snake man baby curled up, fetal position, you just want to cuddle it. It just looks like our infants. But it is the Anunnaki who left the most physical evidence of their existence. Big heads on Easter Island and the pyramids made from stones too large for man's machines to move. But what about real, in the flesh proof of the Anunnaki? We have that too, more or less. In 1982, an extremely tall man was photographed in Patagonia, estimated to be 9 feet 8 inches tall. The incident published in Uiga magazine. This was followed by a recent video capture on May 8, 2011, of a tall man silhouetted against the sky, also estimated to be 9 foot 8 inches tall. Per Uiga magazine, the early explorers drew sketches of extremely large men. This may not be a full-blood Anunnaki, but a hybrid. The Anunnaki were just another race of man, and traces of their bloodline show up here and there, aplenty. And what traces might those be? Like the very tall mummies from the Qiang people. Quoting archaeologists, the researchers have revealed that the skeleton recovered from the tomb measured a massive 7 feet 6 inches. The skeleton is 4,000 years old and belonged to the Qiang people, an ethnic group of China who live mainly in mountainous regions in the northwestern part of Sichuan province on the eastern edge of the Tibetan Plateau. End of the quote. The mummies recently discovered in China had a dairy diet, not unlike the Mongols of today. These mummies had front teeth laid sideways to accommodate the narrow jaws. Per the Sumerian glyphs, the Anunnaki had narrow jawlines, so a hybrid might have a narrow jaw, but human-sized teeth. Can the evidence of this Anunnaki blood be seen in Mongolia today? They are a hardy people, and many have a thin, pointed jaw, unlike the round faces typical of the Chinese people. Genghis Khan, of course, came from Mongolia. His Mongolian horde rampaged across the Eurasian continent from coast to coast. His leadership was noted for intelligence and brutality toward the vanquished, both of which might be considered Anunnaki traits. Where the Anunnaki did not evolve from apes on Earth, they are close enough genetically to man to be able to interbreed and have left their mark among men. Legends, of course, abound, including biblical legends. Goliath was Anunnaki, but David was a half-breed. Samson was a full-blood Anunnaki. Legends of powerful human giants throughout the world are referring to the Anunnaki. Anunnaki legend includes the gods of Mount Olympus, the Visigoths of Germany, and of course Thor, who could throw lightning bolts with a special hammer. Thor's hammer of legend was a device developed by dwarves. Per Wikipedia, and I quote, "When Thor was 8, Odin sent him to Nidavellir, the land of the dwarfs, to bid the dwarfs broke an intrigue to create 3 treasures for Asgard's ruler. End of the quote. Too bad we don't speak Scandinavian. Thor, the ancient Scandinavian Germanic god, could create lightning bolts to smite his enemies by throwing a hammer. Quoting HistoryAnswers.com. The spread of belief in Thor's is largely believed to have been brought upon by the Norman invasions throughout northern Europe. Thor was most well known for his legendary hammer, Mjolnir, or the Crusher. When thrown, the hammer would cause lightning bolts to strike his foes. End of the quote. But if Thor lives only in legend, the land of the dwarfs proves to be very real. We have the mummies of dwarfs in Tibet, not far from the Qiang people of eastern Tibet. Quoting a 1938 discovery in the Himalayas, and I quote, "The caves appeared to have been artfully carved into a system of tunnels and underground storerooms. The walls, it is said, were squared and glazed, as if cut into the mountain with great heat. The explorers are said to have found many neat rows of tombs with short 138-centimeter skeletons buried within. The skeletons had abnormally big heads and small, thin, frail bodies." So if the Anunnaki were in Tibet and Europe, and the dwarfs were in Tibet, were the dwarfs in Europe too? Ah, yes, in Austria, where troll tunnels have recently been discovered. Humans must squat and crawl to move about. These tunnels were made for trolls, for dwarves, not for men. And the trolls, like the Anunnaki, were not native to Earth. They were extraterrestrial. Quoting a Pravda article in 2015, "Under the eastern Styria in Austria, there is a still poorly understood labyrinth of caves and corridors. What the researchers can puzzle about, the more than 10,000 years old corridors seem to have been built with machinery. Underground caves and tunnels crisscross the eastern Styria, and only a fraction of it is known. In recent years, more than 800 systems have been researched and scientifically documented. We have a guideline and are more than 10,000 years where the gears were already there." In other words, they had gear mechanisms way back when mankind didn't. All right, continuing with the quote. "This is unbelievable for the Stone Age. We have scanned these passages precisely to 0.2 millimeters, and many find that only deviations are from 16 millimeters on long stretches there. This is even now impossible with today's machines." End of the quote. Wow. Per legend and the evidence left on Earth, the Anunnaki were a race of hominoids, 8-foot-tall giants. The ancient Sumerians documented the appearance and lifestyle of the Anunnaki. Via the Anunnaki, the ancient Sumerians were aware of the outer planets all the way to and including Pluto, long before mankind discovered Pluto. They counted the planets from the outside in toward the sun, as this would be what they would encounter on the trip back to Earth. When their home planet Nibiru came into the solar system periodically, every 3,600 years, ships would shuttle between Nibiru and Earth. Of course, there had been travel between the Earth and the Moon, and Earth and Mars, etc. Landing strips to guide these shuttles were carved into the rock and can be seen today in Peru, in Tibet, and even in the marshlands of New Jersey. The Anunnaki even made an appearance on the Swiss franc. There they are, tall and with narrow heads, striding along through the solar system. So even the Illuminati want to brag that they are aligned with the Anunnaki. But where are the Anunnaki today? Per the Zetas, they were quarantined from Earth by the Council of Worlds, who felt their constant attempts to enslave mankind tipped the balance on this, our spiritual schoolhouse. The Anunnaki had space travel equivalent to our ISS shuttles today and inhabited Antarctica in the past. As the ice melts, evidence of this emerges. One recent discovery is an Annunaki launching pad, which in the opinion of the Zetas did not launch like our missiles, but used a circular sling method. Another device that the melting ice revealed was a desalination device placed on the rock at the water's edge, where Lake Vostok in Antarctica is and was fresh water. It is easier to gain fresh water from a desalination process than to port fresh water over many miles. And if the Annunaki were on the moon, were they on Mars? In the opinion of the Zetas, they had space travel equivalent to what mankind has today, and mined for gold on Mars as well as on Earth, using the moon as a communication outpost. The Mars rover has returned a remarkable image showing an Anunnaki doll, the face remarkably similar to the ancient Sumerian pictographs. The Anunnaki were stationed on Earth and periodically on Mars because of their obsession with gold. The Anunnaki used gold to retain heat and light on their home planet, Nibiru. Gold dust puffed into the clouds above reflected the heat and light naturally generated from the core of Nibiru. It is the Anunnaki obsession with gold that is the base of mankind's obsession with gold. El Dorado, the lost city of gold, was just a place where a gold delivery to the Anunnaki, their home planet, Nibiru, was staged for delivery. Green vegetation and blue skies, proving that Mars is and was a life-bearing planet, have long been colored in gray. NASA has sought to hide the Anunnaki past on Mars, as this proves that intelligent life exists elsewhere in the universe, and there is a long-standing cover-up over the alien presence. The face on Mars was obvious, for instance, but denied. Now there is speculation that gold dust can be seen in dried lake beds on Mars. As we have more than a gold glitter to prove the Anunnaki lived on Mars, a goat skull is proof of their prior stay. The forlorn nature of these artifacts shows that the Anunnaki are no longer on Mars, though they are conducting robotically controlled mining for gold in the solar system. Phobos, a moon of Mars, was one location, and the robot shot down an approaching Russian probe because it did not have the right electronic signature. Then the Mars rover sent back an image of a scurrying mouse. If the Anunnaki shuttled grain from Earth, then they surely included rodents, who are now living on the moss and bugs native to Mars. So this is the cover-up over alien life, over the Anunnaki, over all the little critters like the bopping blue guy in Peru and the little man showing up in London and Missouri and Argentina, peeping in windows as a peeping Tom. You know, the obvious, legitimate tape of Skinny Bob. On and on, folks. They're here, they have been here, and never mind when Seti tries to tell you that they're listening for radio waves. How ridiculous can that be? And that's the end of my planned talk. Andre, how are we doing?
Yeah. Well, we got a little time left here. I would like to say that in recent times, the past couple of years, but even in the past 6 months, I would say there's been an uptick in not necessarily sightings of extraterrestrials or galactic visitors, but the UFO sightings are up too. And
yes.
I think some of them might be ours, but then again, it's hard to tell. But it seems that there's been a lot more sightings, legitimate sightings. I mean, you can tell a legitimate sighting or video. Usually it's video now with the cell phones out there and everything that they can grab video quickly. But if there's no audio, first of all, that's a flag that it's probably a fake. And then if there's no reaction from the person filming that it's a significant event, like wow, or, you know, exclamations or possibly swearing, or, you know, when people see, like the Phoenix Lights is a good example of a legitimate video. When you say, where people are like, ooh, and, you know, there's a group of folks all experiencing it at the same time. One person is filming it. But so for the folks out there who are wondering, you know, how it's hard to trust your gut, I guess. I mean, if it looks fake, it probably is. Like we were talking about the Skinny Bob video. It's hard to fake, even with a puppet. Like I've seen some really, like the alien autopsy video, remember like late 80s, early 90s, right when the internet started. Remember that, Nancy?
Yeah.
It wasn't
Yeah.
a Zeta, perhaps, but it looked kind of like a gray. It was a gray, but it didn't look like a Zeta. It was kind of poorly done, but I was into that when I was digging that on the internet when it dial-up days, Nancy. Click.
Yeah.
Remember when the phone would yell at you to make sure you had a connection?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess my advice out there from my experience is just trust your gut on anything. Use your own discernment and, process it through your own self. And if it feels right, it probably is. And if it the other way, then you know how to deal with that. Just do research
right.
and keep at it.
Yeah. There's so much, people throw a video out and it can be examined if it's authentic or CGI, If you see it yourself in the sky, well, there you are. Trust your lion eyes, And it's so commonplace. You can hardly encounter somebody who hasn't seen a UFO at some point. Stands stationary and then zips off in some direction, or does circle and loop-de-loops and zooms up to you and winks at you and then disappears. Well, was that a UFO? Well, I don't know. It might have been a stealth bomber. So, yes, it was a UFO. So they frequently is a telepathic message too, being sent to people who are down below who see it. They say, "What's that?" And then they get the message.
Yeah.
You're living in a tsunami area. You're too close to the coast,
right,
or whatever. That was recently a really good one, taken by an Egyptian photographer, and we addressed it, although most of the time we just ignore all this because it's so common now. But this one was extremely well done. They were, 4 lines had a slight, angle, and it looked, and moving along, it looked like wave action. And then they sort of combined into one big gloomy line, moving in the same direction like it had become a tsunami. And it was so well done. You couldn't miss it. You looked at it, you had the feeling that the waves were going to increase and then it would become a tsunami. In Egypt, well, they're right there on the plate border in the Mediterranean, and so I took the opportunity to expand on that for next week's newsletter, talking about the New Madrid again, because of in the opinion of the Zetas, during the Earth changes which they have described and which have so far been following their predictions, of sinking in Indonesia and moving west of the top part of South America with all the quakes up and down the Andes and, pushing the Caribbean down, blah, blah, blah. It includes the New Madrid ripping open because the poor North American continent cannot split diagonally. It can't roll, so it has to wrench at a diagonal split with the northwest part in one place and the southeast part, moving in a different direction, and such and such, so you get a New Madrid rip all the way up the Mississippi under the seaway, and then there's a sister plate that goes up along the east coast, and it's coming. There's all these signs, the increased earthquakes and the dropping bridges and the sinkholes and the tremors and the whatever, So when that happens, when there's a big one in finality, the way the Zetas say, lots of bridges on the Mississippi are going to be ripped. Then the North American plate, which is attached to the Eurasian plate, or Europe, and then attached to Africa up there, Canary Islands, etc., all of that's going to adjust and tear open. So you have a void in the middle of the Atlantic, which is what happens anyway. The Atlantic is going to spread. The Pacific is going to compress. So when you got this big hole there in the middle of the Atlantic, water will rush in and rebound in the direction of Europe and the Mediterranean, what the Zetas have called the European tsunami. And as the water rushes into the Mediterranean, it will be more than just the fact that Africa now has, it can shift around and wiggle better because it's not so glued over there in the Atlantic. It'll be water coming in from the Atlantic and adjustments in the African plate. Voila, explaining the UFO display that was over at Egypt. So they're trying to warn us, the best they can. They can't just come down and grip us. In the first place, it's not just the governments of the world that are covering up the alien presence. It's also the Council of Worlds, because if you're shocked into something, it increases fear and anxiety. And increasing fear is like yelling fire in a crowded theater. There isn't much empathy and caring for others that goes on. You step on your neighbors, everybody, gets crushed underfoot. Babies are thrown aside. Get out of my way, I'm coming through. Fire hurts, and so it's panic. So they're all rushing. So you don't want to create fear and anxiety, because that doesn't help with the development. This is a spiritual schoolhouse. We're supposed to develop more empathy for each other and learn how to do that and to grow our souls, deepen, this stuff. So they are slowing down the awareness of the alien presence to the point where there won't be a huge uptick in, it's all right if you have a palpitation or something like that, but they don't want, people running.
A mass landing situation.
Mass landing fear kind of thing, because there are people that will try to tell you that.
Independence Day is propaganda. The movie?
It cannot
propaganda. All those bad alien films are all made to inspire fear and
hold back the awakening. And prevent aliens and people chatting. But
I'm not saying that there aren't service to self bad ET galactic type groups out there.
Right.
But what Nancy is saying, what the Zetas are saying, is that the Earth is protected at this point from those folks, and we've decided as a populace, as a race, that we're going to be service to other in our from here on out on this planet, this schoolhouse. So that is good. I got two thumbs up in the air over here.
Yeah,
good
95%.
Good stuff.
95% of young worlds like the Earth turn out to be service to other, caring, empathetic. 5% stay immature, want control, and hoard everything they can get, and that kind of thing. Go on power trips. So the rules are they can give us counsel, psychological counsel, but they cannot do things to us. Nothing. So therefore.
Who does the heavy lifting then?
Well, actually, it's people to see they're uneasy. Yes. People are uneasy by what they see, and they do what they call give the call. I want to know. Why, ma? Well, that's known as reaching out to the aliens and asking out of curiosity. Curiosity and such is giving the call, and then you have a visitation. Well, in 2008, there was 12,000 people that were considered contactees per the Zetas. And now there's over 4 billion. Better than half the humans on Earth are chatting with aliens, and they're getting the truth from their alien buddies. Yeah, better than half. And they know that what the rules are, and they know there's nothing to be worried about, and they know that Nibiru is real, and they've gotten it, so they're sure when they listen to the government, etc. But there's a lot of difference between subconscious and conscious knowledge. The subconscious is in control all the time. The conscious filters, and you only get part of the story from your conscious. This is what allows people to become amnesiac